Good morning. Welcome. It's kind of a misty day out. I've been moving some stuff in here to the partially completed sun porch, sunroom. There was a chance of frost again, and it's getting time this stuff needs to be moved in. It's getting hard to cover it all. Every time they talk of frost. We've built this out of mostly salvage material, but kind of want to talk about, inspired me to talk about what we're talking about today. Starting a new garden. For This is mainly aimed towards people who have never gardened before. We want to start a new garden. We want to start a garden. Well, the first thing it starts is we have to start where it was right here. It sounds funny. And this is the time of year to be doing it. We have to evaluate ourselves. Are we willing? How much time do we have, and what kind of conditions are we willing to put up with? Gardening's fun. It's great fun. I highly recommend it for everybody, but to be honest, it's not for everybody. Are we willing to be out there when it's hot, when it's cold, when it's wet? How much time are we willing to put into it? And that's what I say, it starts here. So how big a garden are we going to make? I currently do a 60 by 40 meter, and that's getting down, to me, that's a postage stamp. That's tiny. And yet I would never recommend somebody just starting out go that big. At one point, I had over 3 hectares of a garden. Of course, I was raising produce to sell, too. And I've thought about going back to doing it. I have a problem getting it to market because I don't see good enough to drive. And I'm quite remote. So getting it to market is a problem. And it is why I quit doing it. But anyway, what size should a beginner start with? And I would say the maximum is a 10 by 10. 10 meters by 10 meters. And I'd say the maximum. And that comes from years of experience. I've even worked in the produce fields. I've seen what it takes to take care of 20 hectares of cabbage. I worked for a gentleman that had a hectare of tomatoes. So I can, when I'm evaluating saying 10 by 10, I can speak from experience because I know what the effort it takes. So anyways, we want to start our patch. So we figure out how much we're going to do, we're willing to do, how much time we actually have to devote to it. Where I farm, I'm here a lot. I mainly farm. I do some carpentry work and sawmill work and other types of work. But I'm close to home a lot, and I spend most of the daylight hours outside. It doesn't bother me. But you have to make that decision. So we lay out, we make our decision how big by how much time we want to spend, and we lay it out. And if we're going over one bed, say a 1 meter by 10 meters, I would recommend, this is the one time I'll recommend you get a tiller. Rent a tiller. Don't buy one, but rent one. And work that soil up now. This is fall of the year. Why would I start in the fall? Because we want to get rid of those perennial weeds. Some of those weed seeds will actually still sprout this time of year. And then they will be killed out by frost. We get that grass out of there. We get that grass roots and perennials into the compost pile, get them stirred up so they die. You can start rotting. Then we don't like bare soil in the garden. So it's a good time to plant a cover crop. And this can be anything from daikons to oats to soy if you're in the south, peas in the north. Get it planted. Preferably with something that will die before spring. And we've got that part out of the way till spring. Because I do not recommend planting any overwintering crops now. Now, if you're going to plant some perennials, like maybe a rhubarb or something, it's okay to do that now. Or strawberries. But we don't want to be overwintering stuff. Start small. Learn to crawl before you try to run the marathon. It's a good time to locate a lot of our materials for the garden. Steel posts, maybe want to use some cattle panels for trellises, some steel posts, tomato cages. Which I don't use tomato cages for tomatoes, these little wire ones. I use them for aubergines, but it's a good time to locate that stuff. People have decided they're not going to garden anymore. They want to get rid of it, often for free. So we can get that home. It's a good time to begin our leaf mold and our compost. Lots of good materials out there we can get, often for free. We can gather this all up and get it working. It's also a good time to start thinking about what we're going to grow. Probably the second most important thing is what are we going to grow and how much. If you're just starting out, you may not want to can or freeze, and that's perfectly okay. So in fact, I don't recommend taking too many things on at once. So maybe we want to plant 4 tomatoes. That's going to make a lot of tomatoes if they're well taken care of. 4 bell peppers or 6 bell peppers. Figure out what varieties you're going to plant, how much space they take in the bed, and plant them a little farther apart. Figure out that you're going to plant them a little farther apart to make a little more room. Until you're experienced, don't crowd them up this tight. Even though I'm going to recommend some intensive planting, don't crowd them up as tight as you would after you give them a little more room. We tend to underestimate how big that seedling is going to get. But I said, don't get too much of a variety. 5, maybe 10 different things. Some radishes and some lettuce in the spring, maybe some tomatoes and bell peppers, maybe a courgette and an eggplant. Keep it simple. And only plant things that you already know that you eat, that you like. There's no sense growing bitter melon if you don't like bitter melon. I happen to like bitter melon. In fact, the only thing that I don't like out of the garden is lima beans. So I don't grow lima beans. But if you like lima beans, maybe you want to try some lima beans or some green beans. Seed catalogs are full of pictures and descriptions that are designed to make you want to buy stuff. And if you've never ate it, it's not something to start with. When you get experienced, yeah, it's great to try new things. And I always say, go out there and try something new. This is one time I don't recommend you try something new until you got some experience under your belt, that you don't mind putting the effort into something and then not eating it. But find our seeds, locate a good seed supplier, and get those seeds ordered here in the next month or two. It's a good time to order them, right around the first of the year, or even before. So, anyways, there's some advice to new gardeners. Just a little bit of it. Get your tools in order. It's a good time to find those because, like I said, you have gardeners that have quit. These tools are going to start showing up on sales, rummage sales, jumbles. You may even find them laying out there along the curb to go to the trash man. Don't be afraid to ask for them. So anyway, That's my little deal. I'm starting a new garden. My little bit of advice to you. And as always, I want you all to go out there, have a good time, have some fun, and stay safe. Try something new, and above all, keep growing.